and good afternoon, and ho, 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 because 'tis the season to be jolly. This is Bookworms, the Christmas edition, and my name is Lucy Cooper, and we have a huge panel, well, as many as we could fit in, actually. There's only got 3 chairs. Graham, Marilyn and Eunice.
Hello, Lucy.
Hi,
hello everybody.
Hello, it's so nice to be here. Actually, on Christmas Eve, doing a radio show on Christmas Eve, that feels fairly special.
Cool.
Feels a little bit RNZ, doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
Don't you think? So Bookworms is the show where a group of us who are really into reading come and share our favourite bits of reading that we're currently into. And today we have chosen, well, not me, because I've been very lazy and I've just decided I'm going to drive the desk. But Graham, Marilyn and Eunice have all chosen some fabulously festive fare for our ears. And I think, Graham, are you going to kickstart us off?
I am. I'm going to start with my favourite book. I have read from this in the very first programme that we did at the beginning of the year, The Wind in the Willows. It doesn't conjure up Christmas, except 57 years ago tomorrow I got this as a Christmas present.
Gosh.
On my 6th
That
birthday.
very copy?
This very copy, and it's the most precious thing
really?
that belongs to me apart from my wife. And she doesn't belong to me, she coexists. But this is a very, very precious book.
Oh, gosh.
And my favourite uncle and auntie gave it to me for my birthday when I was 6.
Oh, that's incredible.
And I read it every year.
Did we work out his age then?
Well, I think we could. We're
just
quietly
very-
doing that, aren't we?
Just doing it in the
Yeah, all
background.
right, 63, there you go. And I love stories where animals are humanised, and we've just been talking about that, and they call it anthropomorphic.
Awesome.
And I've always called my animals, my pets at home, with human names, and I talk to them like children.
Yeah.
And it's just the sort of person I am, and I love this. So it's special Christmas for that. The part I was going to read, and I still am, is a page, just one little page, that I think is one of the most beautiful pieces of writing that I have ever read.
Oh.
Now, this you've got to remember, this book was written way, way back in 1908, I think. And I just love the way he describes the turning from winter into spring. And you'll hear that in a minute. And I thought that's not really Christmassy, so I'm also going to read a tiny bit, which has the only reference to Christmas in the book.
Right.
And so here we go. This is when it goes from winter into spring. In the wintertime, the rat slept a great deal, retiring early and rising late. During his short day, he sometimes scribbled poetry or did other small domestic jobs about the house. And of course, there was always animals dropping in for a chat, and consequently there was a good deal of storytelling and comparing notes on the past summer and all its doings. Such a rich chapter it had been, when one came to look back on it all, with illustrations so numerous and so very highly coloured. The pageant of the riverbank had marched steadily along, unfolding itself in scene pictures that succeeded each other in stately procession. Purple loosestrife arrived early, shaking luxuriant tangled locks along the edge of the mirror, whence its own face laughed back at it. Willow herb, tender and wistful, like a pink sunset cloud, was not slow to follow. Comfrey, the purple hand in hand with the white, crept forth to take its place in the line, and at last one morning the diffident and delaying dog rose, stepped delicately onto the stage, and one knew, as if string music had announced it in stately chords that strayed into a gavotte, that June at last was here. One member of the company was still awaited, the shepherd boy for the nymphs to woo, the knight for whom the ladies waited at the window, the prince that was to kiss the sleeping summer back to life and love. But when meadow sweet, debonair and odorous in amber jerkin, moved graciously to his place in the group, then the play was ready to begin. And I just think that is so beautiful.
It's beautifully written, isn't it?
Isn't
and quite
it?
complex, it's
Well,
a
it
complex
is.
imagery, and just comparing it to kids' books today, which is a completely different kind of vibe these days.
And
Isn't
I read it all the time, that page, and I keep thinking, did kids understand it? It was such grown-up writing.
Yes. Do you know what I say to my kids when they don't understand? I say, just let it wash over you. You don't need to understand. Just have a listen to the words.
Listen to the words.
Yeah. And the poetry in those words is just so magnificent.
That bit where he talks about the stately chords that strayed into a gavotte, it just hit me when I read that. I thought it was so beautiful.
And of course the flowers and the plants.
Yes.
Some of them we know, but there'd be one or two that would be specifically English, wouldn't they? Yeah.
Just before I read this other short little bit, this book was originally published in 1908, and it was reprinted 36 times.
Gosh.
By 1926.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it must have been an instant hit.
Yeah, totally.
Wonderful. And so just with the little Christmas theme, I just found this little piece here, and so I'd like to read this bit just to finish off my part. At last the rat succeeded in decoying him to the table. He's got this is a rat with Mole, and they're having their dinner, and had just got seriously to work with the sardine opener when sounds were heard from the forecourt without. Sounds like the scuffling of small feet in the gravel, and a confused murmur of tiny voices, while broken sentences reached them. Now, all in a line. Hold up the lantern a bit. Tommy, come on, clear your throats. First, no coughing after I say 1, 2, 3. Where's young Billy? Here, come on, we're all waiting. What's up? Inquired the rat, pausing in his labours. I think it must be the field mice, replied the mole with a touch of pride in his manner. They go around carol singing regularly at this time of the year. They're quite an institution in these parts, and they never pass me over. They come to Mole End last of all, and I give them hot drinks and supper, when I can afford it. It'll be like old times to hear them again. Well, let's have a look at them, cried the rat, jumping up and running to the door. It was a pretty sight, and a seasonable one, that met their eyes when they flung the door open. In the forecourt, lit by the dim rays of a horn lantern, some 8 or 10 little field mice stood in a semicircle, red worsted comforters around their throats, their forepaws thrust deep into their pockets, their feet jiggling for warmth. With bright, beady eyes they glanced shyly at each other, sniggering a little, sniffing, and applying coat sleeves a great deal. As the door opened, one of the elder ones that carried the lantern was just saying, "Now then, 1, 2, 3. And forthwith their shrill little voices uprose on the air, singing one of the old-time carols that their forefathers composed in fields that were fallow and held by frost, or when snowbound in chimney corners, and handed down to be sung in the miry street to lamp-lit windows at Yule time."
That's lovely.
Oh, isn't it? Very evocative, isn't
Lovely,
it? Yeah. So when you got this when you were 6 for Christmas, did you read it straight away?
I can't remember, to be honest.
No.
I love the book, but I love it because of who gave it to me.
Yeah.
She wasn't actually a real auntie. She was a friend of my mother's. And my mother called her Auntie Edna. Mum never called her Edna. She called her Auntie Edna. She was a bit older than Mum. And I loved her. I loved her dearly, this lady. And it was her who gave it to me. So the book's precious, but the person who gave it to me is equally as precious.
Yes.
And if ever I've got to grab one thing out of the house in a hurry, it'll be this.
Wow, gosh, it means that much.
It
That's
does.
amazing.
It's just, And I'm reading it at the moment, so I'm up to here at the moment. So. Yeah.
And what's it like as an entire read? Is it does it rollick along?
Oh yes.
Oh yes,
yeah.
I haven't read it.
Yes, I've read it recently on the aeroplane going to England.
Right. Okay.
Ingrid, Eunice got this as a gift after she heard me read it on air.
Oh, Layla, look at that. The power of radio.
Well, I was raving about it, and Joe bought it for me as a gift, so I took it to England and read it on the aeroplane.
It'd be nice as an audio book.
And there's about 12 little illustrations, and then you can see one there that's Molly and Rat punting down the river, rowing down the river. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Very evocative. Thank you. You've kick-started this show in an excellent way.
Great.
And now we're going to pass the baton to Marilyn.
Yes.
Journey of the Magi.
Yes, Journey of the Magi, which I thought was sort of Christmassy. It's sort of, of course, it's a T.S. Eliot who is renowned at the moment for cats.
Yes.
Yeah, we won't talk about Cats the film possibly, but this is one that I've always liked it. It sort of has a different twist in a way to the story of the Magi, and perhaps it explores all sorts of perhaps darker themes to it. But I thought, well, it'd be something for this time of Christmas. So this is the journey of the Magi. A cold coming we had of it, just the worst time of the year for a journey, and such a long journey. The ways deep and the weather sharp, the very deep, the very dead of winter. And the camels gored, sore-footed, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted the summer palaces on slopes, the terraces, and the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the camel men cursing and grumbling and running away and wanting their liquor and women. And the night fires going out, and the lack of shelters, and the cities hostile, and the towns unfriendly, and the villages dirty and charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. At the end we preferred to travel all night, sleeping in snatches, with the voices singing in our ears saying that this was all folly. Then at dawn we came down to a temperate valley, wet below the snow line, smelling of vegetation, with a running stream and a watermill beating the darkness, and 3 trees on the low sky, and an old white horse galloped away in the meadow. Then we came to a tavern with vine leaves over the lintel, 6 hands at an open door dicing for pieces of silver, and feet kicking the empty wineskins. But there was no information, and so we continued and arrived at evening, not a moment too soon, finding the place. It was, you may say, satisfactory. All this was a long time ago, I remember, and I would do it again. But set down this. Were we led all that way for birth or death? There was a birth, certainly. We had evidence and no doubts. I had seen birth and death, but had thought they were different. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. We returned to our places, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here in the old dispensation, with an alien people clutching their gods. I should be glad of another death.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Makes you think.
Oh, it does make you think, doesn't it? I studied, I had a T.S. Eliot class when I studied in Belgium. It sounds very grand, but the class is at 7:30 in the morning. I can tell you it's very difficult to understand T.S. Eliot at 7:30 in the morning. But it's interesting, I remember from that class, like his preoccupation with time and the measurement of time, and that's exactly that going on in there, that birth, death, life, struggle.
And then you've got the sort of the images of the 3 trees, which presumably references the 3 crosses.
Yes.
At Calvary, sort of things like that. There's all sorts of references you can take out of it.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's one of the great fascinations with poetry, and particularly T.S. Eliot for me, is you can spend all week unpacking a line, and still not have any real clarity over, or consensus over what he meant or where he was going. And fabulous. So are you a big T.S. Eliot fan?
I do like some of his, yes, but it's just that because it was Christmas and we were looking for some different readings and things and poems and that, and it's always one that's appealed, just because it gives you the picture of them. Because I sort of have another one about the 3 kings arriving, but it and of course Herod sends them off to look for this baby, and but then they turn themselves around and go back home because they don't want to go back to Herod, but this sort of gives the contrast between what it was like for them to have to come all that way over the desert and
those kind of domestic preoccupations of the journey, the discomfort of it, and
So for people out there that are thinking, what's the Magi?
Oh, well, they were the 3 wise men. They were the 3 wise men.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, because or the 3 kings. They were 3 kings. And I just have, this is Longfellow wrote a much sort of nicer poem in a way. The 3 kings come riding from afar, Melchior and Caspar and Balthasar. 3 wise men out of the east were they, and they travelled by night and they slept by day, for their guide was a beautiful, wonderful star. So
That sounds nicer.
that's nice.
It does,
That's
doesn't
nicer.
it?
And they rode into the west, and they had their caskets, and they gave they laid their offerings at his feet. The gold was a tribute to a king. Frankincense with his odour sweet was for the priest, the paraclete. The myrrh for the body's burying. And then the kings rode out of the city gate with the clatter of hooves in proud array. But they went not back to Herod the Great, for they knew his malice and feared his hate, and returned to their homes by another way.
That's nice because it names them too.
Yes,
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I think T.S. Eliot is more. He kind of does gritty realism from a great kind of socio-economic height, doesn't he?
Yes,
I
it
always
does.
think.
Yeah. No. So it's quite different, but that sort of was a little sort of background. So I just got time to just do one very quick,
I think you do.
fun one,
Yep.
which is called A Merry Christmas. Again, it's actually in a children's poetry book out of my vast array of children's poetry books. It's called A Merry Christmas. Let no man come into this hall, groom, page, not yet marshal, but that some sport he bring withal, for now is the time of Christmas. If that he say he cannot sing, some other sport then let him bring, that it may please at this feasting, for now is the time of Christmas. If he say he can naught do, then for my love ask him no more, but to the stocks then let him go, for now is the time of Christmas.
Awesome. Thank you.
Lovely.
I do like a spot of poetry. And have we done much poetry on Bookworms, or have we been mainly kind of on
No, we did do some Shakespeare, didn't
Yes,
we?
you'll never get poetry from me,
Right.
and particularly Shakespearean poetry.
Well, we did. We had him reading at one stage a
Oh,
little
well
bit.
done.
Marilyn knows that I can't stand poetry, Shakespeare, and she made me read Shakespeare.
It was The Taming of the Shrew. I mean, it was so obviously,
well, that's
obviously
one of my
made for Graham.
favourites. Oh, absolutely. Now, Eunice, it's over to you. Now, Eunice, I can't see you across this desk because of this rather elaborate piece of machinery between us. But Eunice, you've got an all-time favourite to read.
I have. It's probably the most famous Christmas poem ever, and it's written by Clement Clarke Moore.
Oh, I never even thought you forget it's got an author with a name.
Yes.
And it's called "'Twas the Night Before Christmas."
Marvellous.
'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hope that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads, and Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When, out on the lawn, there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the lustre of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eye should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my hand and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they sparkled! His dimples, how merry! His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night."
Yay, that was great. Oh, I do like listening to your voice. And you were having a bit of a wardrobe malfunction with the hat.
Oh, yes,
I
my
know.
hat-
You did a great job,
my
though.
hat is-
You didn't miss a beat.
My hat is a bit... And I've lost the bobble off the end of it, which is a
Well,
bit of a
Oh,
nightmare.
that's a shame.
Yeah, I have to sort that out.
So, and I understand you might be reading this to somebody special this
I'm reading
evening.
it to my grandson tonight, just before he goes to bed.
Oh, how lovely. Lovely. And because the thought of doing that, it means if at my house we'd be reading the poem about 11:30 at night. I don't know how I'm going to get my kids into bed. They were very excited
Very
this morning.
excited.
Yeah,
How old are they?
7 and 10.
Oh, goodness.
7 and 10. And
I
they're-
can't believe your daughter's 10.
no.
She
So
was-
Flo was born when we were doing Under Milkwood.
She
Yes.
was breastfeeding.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, the
Flo.
whole world knows now.
Yeah, I
When
know.
when she was reading Polly Garter and
Yes,
having
that's
a
right. It was
baby,
so appropriate,
and she was
wasn't
it?
breastfeeding.
Method acting.
Well, we were always sent to bed early, but
Were you?
when we were kids, and I used to kneel on my bed looking out the window,
Looking for
looking for
Saint
Father Christmas,
Yeah.
and as soon as I was convinced myself that I'd seen him, I'd be fine.
Right.
We lived on a farm, and my parents used to get rid of all the workers for Christmas. They'd have Christmas off,
Yeah.
and Mum would milk.
Right.
And so we weren't allowed to open our presents until Mum and Dad had done the milking,
Yeah.
come home, had breakfast, and the dishes had been
Oh
done.
my gosh!
So what
So
time
it's
would that
torture.
be?
Oh, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
gosh.
and you would have been up for hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the night Christmas Eve, I always used to go out on the front veranda and sing Christmas carols out loud to get Father Christmas's
Christmas
attention. So, and Mum said she always tells the story when I was about 7. She came out one night and I'd been out there for ages and ages singing all these Christmas carols, and she said, "You can come in now. I think he knows where you live."
How gorgeous!
Yeah.
Oh, what kind of traditions did you have growing up, Marilyn?
Well, we used to have pillowcases on the end of the bed for
Yep.
Father Christmas to put the precies into. Yeah.
And would you always get like a piece of fruit and some nuts?
Yeah.
And a
Yes,
bit of
and
pole?
orange. It was
Orange.
One
Yeah.
Christmas I can remember in Wales, and it was not long after the war, and stuff was very, very scarce, chocolate, etc. You know,
Yeah.
it was just such a treat. And somebody had put some chocolate in the bottom of my stocking, and in the middle of the night, a mouse had eaten it.
You are joking. Oh,
And it was
Are
not.
you sure?
Well, I think it was a mouse. Could have been my brother.
Yes, I
Yes,
think
that's
it's
true.
probably not a mouse, a rat.
oh, how lovely! I don't have very glamorous story to tell because when I was growing up, I used to get so excited I'd throw up every Christmas Eve. So I was always the one that I'd be great fun to be around. I'm absolutely sure, but at some point I would spend quite some time not being very well at all. And then, so everybody would wake up Christmas Day being really tired because they'd been looking after me
all night long.
We used to usually go down to my granny and granddad's in Greytown, and there was the whole big family. Everyone was there, all the cousins and everything. Yeah.
We had our grandchildren yesterday because we won't see them on tomorrow. Is tomorrow Christmas Day?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So they came yesterday, and it was just a frenzy. I mean, Adam, who's 5, was just ripping parcels. He wasn't even looking at them. It was just open it up over there. Do you know what that is, Adam? No. It was into the next one.
No. I do tend to. I remember my kids being like that when they were 5, and it breaking my heart, thinking, we've just, we're practically completely bankrupted ourselves for Christmas, and they're just kind of throwing it all around. But I have noticed as they've got older, a little bit more, some of that sensibility comes in, and they do acknowledge that somebody has given it to them and it means something, so that's nice. But it's pretty depressing.
Our granddaughter's 10,
yeah,
and we bought her lots of bits and pieces, but the present that she enjoyed the most, I bought her a calendar. And she was, oh wow, a calendar. And with that she started going around getting everybody's birthdays and putting it in the calendars.
Wonderful.
And I was really chuffed.
That's lovely.
That a $2 calendar from the $2 shop gave her so much pleasure.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I was thrilled with that.
She's a very caring child.
And Lucy, you were in England for most of your Christmases, weren't you?
Yes.
So did you have snow?
I don't remember snow on Christmas Day. I remember snow around winter time, but I do. What I miss, I guess, about a UK or a European winter is the smell of the cold, the smell of trees, like pines and things. Nothing. There are different smells here. So my kids will grow up with a different set of kind of nasal references for Christmas. But smells are a really big thing for me. Of course, we had an open fire. So the smell of wood and, just
pine
hot.
Cone.
Hot and cosy.
Lovely. Yes.
Yeah. And so was it the same with you, Eunice?
Yes.
Because you would have been
in Wales. But I can remember snow at Christmas.
Yeah.
At one time it snowed so much that it came up to our bedroom windows sills, and I did walk out of my bedroom onto the snow.
Oh my gosh, that's so romantic. I'd love to do that.
That was 1947, so I must have been 10.
Oh, we're getting ages, aren't we?
I know.
I'm not going to do the same thing. I'm not going to.
Well, do you know that's brought us up to our 27 minutes?
Oh, wow.
Yes, look at that. We've done really well. I wish you all a really Merry Christmas.
Yes.
I think, have we been going for a year yet, this show? Pretty
I
much.
think we started in January, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah, so it's coming up to our year anniversary.
I didn't realise so much.
Yeah, looking forward to another year.
I hope you're
of
not all
reading.
going to be away as much as you were this year.
Yeah, there was a
You've
bit
all
of that,
been
wasn't there?
overseas, except me, and I've covered for you all. So
I know.
You have.
You've
Payback.
done some heavy
Very well.
lifting.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yes,
Graham.
yeah.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, Graham. Thank you, everybody. It was wonderful. So, Graham, Marilyn, Eunice, thank you. My name is Lucy, and we look forward to bringing you a packed schedule of wonderful books and readings and poetry and anything else you can find on the written page. But we wish everybody a very
Merry
Merry
Christmas, everybody.
Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
and a safe and happy 2020.
Lovely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.